Everyone loves the bear, and they should. The first 2 seasons are compelling, well-written, and very often panic attack level anxiety-inducing. The writing is great, the setting is perfect, and somehow they continue to make a top-tier food show, and the US is more interested in shows about good food than ever. In the beginning, Carmen is the center of the show, but over 18 episodes, it's expanded to focus on Syd as well. While plenty of characters are given moments, even episodes to shine, those two are the blood of the show, and it wouldn't be the bear without them. But one thing I don't think it gets enough credit for is its side characters. They're written and performed so well that it could be argued it's an ensemble show. It might even be moving in that direction. And without Syd and Carm, the show wouldn't really be the show, but without Tina or Marcus, Nat, or Richie, it wouldn't be worth watching. They bring a depth that makes it the success it is. And take it from me, it gets even better on subsequent watches. So since my thing is liking things, let's talk about some side characters from the bear that I love. Now, since I'm the absolute best, I've broken the characters down into sections or tiers associated with classic courses in Italian dining.
Why?
Awesome, right? I want to be clear, I'm not Italian, Italian-American, or particularly smart.
No, he's not even Italian, right?
On top of that, if Stanley Tucci has taught me anything, it's that Italian dining means like a billion different things. But since it's more fun to have them laid out like a meal than just talking for 20 minutes with no stopping, that's what you're getting. Because meals are fun, and I am fun. At least I think I'm fun.
That was really fun.
So do my kids. Are you calling my kids liars?
No, you're absolutely right.
Anyway, like a well-crafted multi-course meal, this show makes perfect use of every character, making the overall experience much more memorable than your average night out at Red Lobster. No shade to the RL. Just like a fancy dinner, The Bear can be a lot. Despite winning awards for being a comedy, I'd argue it's more of a drama with some very funny moments.
Is that my head?
But in between the moments, there are gut punches that stick with you. So let's start out easy with a character that starts real rough, like I really hated her, but in the end is just the absolute best. All right, enough talk, let's eat. Starting with the aperitivo. Tina is a beloved character, but not as much as she should be. Liza Colón-Zayas is incredible in the role and should be winning awards. Some people are blessed with an emotive face, but even with an emotive face, it still takes real skill to show all of Tina's emotions without speaking. Throughout the show, there are many times that she says so much without saying anything. And yet, Tina is also a very vocal character. Like incredibly vocal. It's a unique juxtaposition that ends up making the character a billion times more fun to watch. Her turn from understandably skeptical OG kitchen staff to lovable sous chef is easily one of the most rewarding plot lines. And maybe you youngins missed it, but a lot of her general crankiness is about getting older, or maybe just being older, who knows. But while Tina clearly has some issues with Carm in the beginning, I never thought I'd forgive her for this, but she immediately distrusts Syd, distrusts her, dislikes her, and is pretty dang mean to her. And I can relate to both Syd and Tina as I've been on both sides. Tina's insanely aggressive towards Syd at first, and it becomes clear that it's all about her own insecurities. Because once she realized that Syd is there to do the best job she can, Tina almost turns on a dime. And from then on, Tina does the best job she can do as well. Which leads us to the hug. I love that hug. I know I'm not winning the bear, but seriously. Hugging. Then watching Tina thrive at school despite clearly feeling insecure, unsure, and yes, old. You can see the fear on her face when she hears her younger classmates talking about getting drinks. But then the show throws us a bone and she doesn't get left out. She worked hard in class, was cordial to people, and in response was treated as the equal she was. Also, humans are often not nearly as cliquey IRL. And when she goes for it at karaoke, she's not mocked or laughed at. I mean, sure, part of it is that she absolutely crushes before the next teardrop falls, but you get the impression she could have been out of tune and offbeat, and her classmates still would have cheered her on. By accepting herself, where she is in life, and who she is in life, Tina finds purpose at the bear and clearly becomes a happier person. Then Carm gives her the knife. His knife. Yeah, that knife. And now I'm crying, so much crying. And since we're talking about side characters, to round out our aperitivo, Tina's buddy Ibra is going through something very similar. Not gonna lie, it hurts when he bails on school, but his story is part of what makes this show so good. School ain't for everyone, and change is hard. Ibra just wasn't down with the change, and that's still okay. They made a place for him, and he gets his own comeback. Ultimately, Ibra's a sweetie, so we love to see him succeed where he feels comfortable. Another guy in the kitchen that you don't see all that much is Gary/Sweeps. But he's one of the first employees to treat Syd like an actual person on her first day staging. This moment really encapsulates Syd.
So how you gonna pass the family test? Delicious or impressive?
Delicious is impressive.
Word.
And Gary got us there. He's friendly and chill. That's Gary. But obviously we can't talk about the restaurant and ignore Maddie Matheson's arc as Fack. Honestly, Fack feels like a comedic novelty in the first couple episodes, but it's his arc that really makes him an indispensable piece of the show. Watching Fack and Richie go from basically enemies who will literally physically fight each other to Richie trusting Fack to run front of house while he's on Expo is such a great journey. He takes his natural charisma and likability and uses it for hospitality. His final shot hanging out on a bench snacking next to Gary says it all. Two super nice chill dudes celebrating a job well done. Just as antipasto sets the mood and prepares diners for the main course, sugar helps set an emotional tone for much of the show as the brizzato with it the most together. See, I did it! Some of these courses work with the characters. Kind of, whatever. Shut up, just keep watching. And actually, I don't think I want to call Natalie Sugar after learning the reason behind it, but Nat went from a key but small role in season 1 to one of the most important characters for the restaurant in season 2. The 3 brizzato siblings cope with their messed up family in distinct ways. Michael immerses himself in the family business while pushing Carm away to give him a better chance at life. So Carm escapes but struggles to reconnect when he returns. But Nat goes a different route. She stays but avoids the restaurant, marrying someone completely different from her family and creating her own path without severing ties. So her return to the bear is actually a pretty big deal. Halfway through season 2, she's around so much you forget that she doesn't technically want to be there. And you can't blame her, she's pregnant and everyone at that place is a mess. But one of Nat's biggest character traits is that she's a fixer.
Wait a minute. It's a f you.
Not that she actually fixes anything, I mean that she has a compulsion to try to fix everything. She wants everyone to get along and be happy. It's why she has to ask her mom.
Okay.
Oof. And it's in Fishes that we learn why anything involving family and food would be triggering for Nat, as well as all of us who watch the episode. Seriously, I just don't use forks anymore. When I close my eyes at night, all I see is this disgusting egg timer. But it all changes when she hugs her brizzato escape plan Pete and finally admits that she does in fact work at the bear. Sugar accepts the past and chooses to control her future without cutting out family. Except Francie Fack. Francie Fack can, you know, because of the thing.
Francie Fack.
Is it because of the thing? Or like...
What do you think? You really? Use your brain, babe.
Nat is also the unwitting archetype of a group I call Team Carmy, which also includes Cicero and Claire. They all want what's best for Carmy, and while on their own are all interesting characters, their primary job within the show is to help Carm's story move forward. Oliver Platt is one of those character actors who never really gets the credit he deserves, and he somehow made himself indispensable in a show full of indispensable characters. He's both loving and scary. The first time we meet him, he lets Carmy know he should break his legs based on how much money he owes. But at the same time, he's clearly a big softie and gives Carm every opportunity to pay it back. He wants the bear to succeed. Despite what he says, he even wants Richie to succeed, given that Richie succeeding chokes him up. Also, somehow he was a fantastic Porthos, and I will always love him for that. I mean, Chris O'Donnell was D'Artagnan. The 90s were a hell of a drug. Speaking of the 90s, I think Claire was born in them, which makes me feel old. But giving Carm a romantic interest in season 2 was bold, and the final moments of Friends and Family confirm why. But it makes total sense. Carm isn't gonna screw everything up for some rando, but his childhood crush? That's kryptonite for someone like Carm. And it sure doesn't hurt that Molly Gordon can do the look with the eyes.
That's it.
Holy cow, am I the only one sweating? I'm not sweating, you're sweating. You're the one with the sweating, because good lord, I thought Carmy was good with the smoldering look, but anytime Claire gives a look, I feel like I need to reassure Julia she's the only one for me. Except I can't get her attention because she's lost in Claire's eyes. And look, is Claire a manic pixie dream girl? Probably. But also the entire show is a big ol' trope. Carmy is the saddest little sad boy who we want to fix, and also maybe he can hold us with his muscly tattooed arms? But ask anyone who's ever worked in food, the entire show and restaurant is a fantasy. And we love it. So let the handsome sad boy and the girl with the eyes smooch. Honestly, no idea where their relationship will go. Carm could fix it in a heartbeat, especially after hearing the voicemail. You'd think a chef and a doctor would understand each other's passion well. It could work, but I mean, it probably won't. But it could, and I'm rooting for them. What's not to like about pasta? It's the best. And you know who's also the best? Marcus nailed it. But honestly, Marcus is pretty much likable throughout the entire show. He has a few moments of fussiness.
Cakes all day?
Give me a set.
Nope. Faster. How many?
Got a little behind. I'm gonna catch up.
But overall, you're usually rooting for Marcus. Lionel Boyce brings a quiet and kind energy to Marcus. Inquisitive and hardworking, Marcus's presence lends a certain type of stability to the show. That's not to say he never has outbursts or never screws up.
I was gonna cut them.
They're not even cut yet?
Yeah, it's not that big of a deal.
He creates some awkwardness with Syd and gets kind of pissy with her on Friends and Family Night. But while others have ups and downs that zigzag sharply, his ups and downs have a roundness to them. It's never devastatingly terrible, and it's never Richie belting out love story. But without Marcus, this ain't a meal.
Chef.
His visit to Copenhagen is the perfect representation of his character. The whole thing is a vibe. He's not an immediate superstar at it, but what he is interested and dedicated. Even the bike accident scene of the episode goes along with who Marcus is. While it starts very intense, in the end, the man he helped thanks him, hugs him, and goes home. Season 2 ends with a bunch of missed calls from his mother's nurse, so I think it's possible his calming demeanor may change in the 3rd season. But for now, I like the Marcus who printed out photos from the Noma cookbook and put them up around his station to be inspired. What a nerd. And speaking of nerds, while Marcus is living it up in Copenhagen, he meets Will Poulter's Luca, who's also brilliantly written and performed. Although he's not immediately likable, I wouldn't say he's unlikable, but like other professionals we'll talk about soon, he's clear and to the point, almost to a harsh degree. We love Marcus. We love him so much. So I was ready to take Luca out if he was mean to our teddy bear of a patisserie. But his straightforward directions like,
No, again, chef. No, worse. Again, chef.
aren't done in any kind of mean-spirited way, he's just being real. And while Marcus is nervous, he sticks with it. Marcus wants to be better, he's curious and always learning. Of all the characters from the original Beef crew, he gets on board with Carmy's fancy pants ways the quickest. Literally, in the first episode, Marcus winning Luca over feels earned. He's not some grump who can't be warmed, he's just a guy taking his job seriously. Also, it's a nice touch that he never mentions who the chef was that was so much better than him, but we all know it was Carm, confirmed a few episodes later. Who could possibly be important enough for our second course? Yeah, it's Richie, you were right. Like Nat, Richie became more of a main character in season 2. It almost feels absurd to call him a side character because there's nobody who watches this show and thinks, you know who we don't need? Richie. But he went from being a nice seasoning to being the full-on timpano. And no, I'm not going to stop with the food metaphors, so get on board. I'm not alone in my love for forks, and it might be the best episode of the show so far. If not the best, Review is amazing in its own way for opposite reasons. Forks is certainly the most fulfilling. It pushes Richie out of hard to always sympathize with, rough around the edges guy to totally sympathetic and lovable, and what was your problem with him anyway, you jerk? I'm joking, but also binging seasons 1 and 2 back to back make that real. His character arc is perfectly planned out, and once you know that deep down he's just a softie with lots of self-doubt, you realize that it informs most of his actions in the show. And while his 1 week turnaround might feel a little quick, he's been showing us who he really is all along.
I love Taylor Swift too, I just needed a break, you know?
Or my personal favorite, after being stabbed.
Ibram, I got stabbed. Probably deserved it.
Yeah, maybe.
It's funny, but it's also Richie diffusing the situation after being called a loser and then stabbed by that same person. But even more broadly, it's clear that Richie wants everyone to think he doesn't care, but the dude cares. By the time he makes it to Chef Terry's restaurant, inside the actual restaurant ever, he's almost a fully changed person, but he still lacks purpose, so he lashes out because he feels stupid. It takes a few pep talks and a perspective shift to complete his journey. All the way back to his first scene in season 2, it seemed like he'd turned over a new leaf, but he was still floundering until he started wearing suits.
I wear suits now.
That's so sick.
There are 3 moments after Forks that I'd argue are the culmination of Richie's arc. One is obviously the moment he takes over Expo on Friends and Family and crushes it. Again, I know I'm not winning the bear, but that moment that Richie does take over Expo and Pearl Jam kicks in.
Drive.
Okay, guys.
Another is his apology to Nat. It's heartfelt, but most importantly, it's honest. When she says he's trying to step his game up, his response is perfect.
I'm wearing a suit because it makes me feel better about myself.
It's not about anyone else. But for me, the pinnacle is before that in Bolognese.
I get it.
That's it. That's the game. Richie's arc is complete. He still has to prove himself to Nat and Syd and even himself, but that moment was the moment. Besides having one of the best endings to a Bear episode so far, and being the episode that follows Fishes, the horror movie masquerading as Christmas dinner at the Brazados, the other thing that makes Forks top-tier TV is the staff where our saddest of sad boy gets to stage. I immediately loved Chef Terry the second she was on screen, which they sort of cheated by casting Olivia Colman, but working a menial task, Chef Terry takes the time to talk with and connect to Richie. She opens up, she talks about failure, about starting again at an older age. She also does something that is honestly underrated in society? Yeah, which is tell someone how much someone else believes in them.
He believes in you, you know.
What makes you say that?
He told me.
It's one thing to have them tell you themselves. It's another thing to have an entirely separate person say they were told how much they care. They love you so much they told someone else. There's a reason that moment hits so hard. Along these same lines, a piece of parenting advice given to us by a therapist has always stuck with me. She told us to try to say positive things about our son Jude to each other in front of him. Because I can tell him he was so great with his sister today, but if he hears me tell Julia, he knows for certain it's true, and that it was important enough for me to tell someone else. And Chef Terry finds the exact right moment to tell Richie that Carm believes in him and gives him the boost he never knew he needed. But the real gems of the restaurant are Jess and Garrett. Garrett gives one of the best monologues in a show that's got some pretty good ones. Asking Richie to go outside, a classy move, don't reprimand subordinates in front of coworkers if it can be avoided, Garrett basically lays out the problem. Respect. Richie wants respect from the world, but refuses to give it. Garrett is straightforward when confronting Richie, but again, not in a patronizing way. In many ways, he stands in for Carmen, saying things that Richie would never hear coming from Carmen. And in the end, Garrett likes Richie because Richie's a fun, charismatic guy when he's not angry at the world. Garrett is a great example of how when people love what they do, whether it's a job or a hobby, it's infectious. Not to mention he has one of the funniest moments in the episode.
You, Garrett.
Yes, chef. Fuck me.
And then Jess piggybacks on Garrett's trust of Richie in the best possible way. The moment she lets him take the fine dining deep dish plate to the table is huge. There's no lecture, there's no say this, not this. She just lets him run it. She trusts him. Also, her demeanor on Expo is immensely important to the overall plot, showing there's a way to be serious, work fast, tell someone to back off for a second, and then follow up with them, all while not being a jerk. Also, I'll always love Hattie, and Sarah Ramos' little skits got me through lots of 2020, so Sarah Ramos is always a win. Like an overly rich dessert forced on you after the biggest meal of your life, the Fishes episode almost feels like too much. It is honestly one of the most intense and anxiety-inducing episodes of TV I've ever seen. It's even more anxiety-producing than Rust going undercover in True Detective. Parts can feel over the top, and then all of a sudden there's a moment that'll make you go, oh, no, that's actually pretty realistic. For a show that has a lot of wonderful wish fulfillment, they keep it pretty realistic with the family stuff. Which brings us to Mikey. John Bernthal was the surprise casting for Michael in the first season, though he didn't have much to do. But boy, oh boy, does that change in Fishes. He manically bounces from role to role depending on who he's talking to. The stern older brother, the loud best friend, the caring son, the feisty nephew, the not-so-secret addict in pain. Bernthal hits every target with absurd precision. This is probably the most memorable scene.
Did you just throw a fork at me?
I did.
But there are little moments that slip by, like Carm giving Mikey the drawing of the restaurant that we see in the restroom in episode 1, and then Mikey collapsing under the weight of his mental illness. Richie watching Mikey, knowing he just took something, the immediate switch from anger towards Lee to concern over Dee Dee crashing the car. Bernthal understands the assignment and executes it with the precision of Frank Castle and unhingedness of Shane. He perfectly embodies a character that haunts the entire show. He's truly the icing on the cake. And then just when you say, okay, no more dessert, it's too much, Jamie Lee Curtis shows up and elbow drops your gut like the most decadent chocolate cake you've ever had. You're given maybe 5 seconds of going, oh my god, their mom is Jamie Lee Curtis? Before you're thrown into a whirlwind of stress and food and filthy egg timers. Donna is just pure chaos. She needs help, but nobody's allowed in the kitchen. But why isn't anyone in the kitchen helping? She's fine, help her, get out! And we see traits of all 3 Berzatto kids in Donna. Mikey's chaos, Nat's hosting caring instinct, and Carmen's natural culinary talent. It's all there in one horrifically traumatic package. And it's clear throughout the episode that none of this is new. This is who she is, and everyone else adjusts their lives to her. No matter how good things are currently, we all know what's coming. Jamie Lee Curtis's performance would feel over the top if it wasn't so on the nose. So much of The Bear is a fantasy in the best way, but Dee Dee's clear mental illness snaps us back to reality. Her final scene of the season outside Friends and Family Night is heartbreaking. It shows us a woman trying to reconcile her past with what she wants for her family. She doesn't want to screw everything up, but she knows she will. Even the most charitable interpretation of her character would have to admit that Donna walking into the restaurant and sitting down with Nat and Pete would almost certainly make things worse. Her self-awareness saves the audience from what could have been another brutal scene, but more on that in a bit. Finally, it's time for another drink. Pete is the digestivo. If we really want to try to push the analogy, which obviously we do, Pete helps Nat digest the fact that Donna isn't coming. He's sweet and kind and an absolute doofus. He's the anti-bear, the Negadonna, and that's why Pete is one of the most underrated characters in the show. Chris Wataski's portrayal of the brother-in-law just trying to be a part of this immensely troubled family is so perfect, it's easy to forget that he only has about 10 minutes of screen time in the whole show so far. And much of that time is just Pete being a punching bag. Whether shaming him for wanting to help and bring food to Christmas, leaving the room so they don't have to talk to him, or wanting to punch him while he's asleep, Pete is everything they hate. A nice guy. It's why Nat married him. He's a total sweetie. It's also easy to forget that until Claire, Pete is the only non-employee in Carm's life who thinks his pursuits are awesome.
Carm here was the chef of the best restaurant in the world. Okay, that's not an exaggeration.
All of Carm's emotionally immature and stunted family and friends wrap their own insecurities in mocking Carmy's success. The scene goes by quick, but Pete is stoked about it. Not only does he tell Carm that, he also defends Carmen's job choices to a bunch of Cicero's friends at the party. And while Pete is maybe not great at reading the room or taking a good vibe check, he stuck up for Carmy when things were going south. Pete is the homie. But back to Pete's conversation with Dee Dee, a scene that is honestly Emmy-worthy. It's a heartbreaking interaction of 2 characters trying to do what they think is best. Opposite a powerhouse like Jamie Lee Curtis, it'd be easy to let Wataski's performance go unnoticed. Especially because Donna is going balls to the wall while Pete is just being Pete. This interaction between these 2 polar opposites shows how hard it can be being a person in this world. Donna can't bring herself to go inside, and Pete just doesn't get it. She wants to tell her kids how much she loves them and how proud she is of them, but she can't do it. And Pete is almost begging because he knows what it would mean to Nat. The back and forth is rough and goes on for an uncomfortable amount of time, but somewhere in the emotional mess, brilliantly set to 9 Inch Nails' Hope We Can Again, Pete reveals that Nat is pregnant, not knowing Donna hadn't been told, and it clinches it for her.
I need you to say it's okay. Donna, don't. I need you to say it's okay.
This is classic narcissist behavior. And that's not a dig at Donna, who clearly needs help. She cannot take responsibility. She needs someone else to give her the go-ahead. He finally does, and Pete's left overwhelmed and wondering what to do. It's 4 minutes, and it's incredible. But it's not over. Now Pete has to figure out how to tell Nat that her mom isn't coming. First, he tries to excuse Donna.
I mean, this isn't easy. It's a lot of people, a lot of history. It's just a lot.
And it really is. We don't know what kind of family Pete came from, but he married into the Berzados. He saw what was going on and still stuck around, and plenty of relationships end because of family issues. I mean, Donna crashed a car into the house. Pete clearly loves Nat. I mean, to be fair, she's way out of his league. But he still stuck around despite the Berzados being a lot. And now, with the perfect opportunity to throw Donna under the bus, he instead prioritizes Nat and tells her she's not coming in the most empathetic way.
I wouldn't hold it against her.
No.
Not this one.
So much spoken without words. And then he crumbles and it makes total sense. Pete has seen all the Brazado crap, he's been supporting Nat through building the bear, and sometimes seeing where the people you love have come from makes you love them even more. They went through that much, dealt with those people and that family trauma, and still came out as the incredible person they are. That alone is mind-blowing, but then they go ahead and love you? They choose you? It's too much. Pete is the best, and Pete is on Team Bear, and they are all damn lucky to have him, even if the world doesn't deserve him. So, did we just end on Pete randomly, or has this entire video been a trick to make you realize that Pete is the best character in the show? No, it wasn't a trick. Why would you think that? That's really weird. But also, truly, the side characters in The Bear are what take it from a great show about a sad boy chef to an excellent show depicting complicated, broken people in an albeit somewhat unrealistic restaurant package. I love the characters in The Bear, but we basically sidestepped what I see as the real content of the show, mental illness. It's deep in the Brazado family, but it's also not limited to just them. They aren't surrounded by a bunch of perfectly well-adjusted NPCs. They act like people we know, or maybe are, for better or worse. And while we covered the most important side characters, this script was originally quite a bit longer. I had a whole thing about Sarah Paulson and her partner John Mulaney, Bob Odenkirk as the fork target, Robert Townsend, Molly Ringwald, Mitra Johari, Carmen Christopher, Alex Moffat, and I don't know, Jillian effing Jacobs? I mean, who isn't in this show? Besides me. Really can't stress how much nobody asked me to be on The Bear. But I digress. Like I said at the beginning, without Carm, there's no story at all. Without Syd, the story can't progress to fine dining. But if you take Tina or Richie away, nobody is talking about the show. If you take Pete away, you lose the almost mythical anti-bear. Would we love him as much if everyone else weren't so cold and mean to each other? Well, that's the thing. It's the sweet and the sour, or as my buddy Jason puts it,
without the bitter, baby, the sweet ain't as sweet.
And I know sour, which allows me to appreciate the sweet.
Whew, I don't know about you, but I'm stuffed. Please treat food workers with respect and tip them well, regardless of whether or not they are as hot as Iban Mossbachrock. Thanks for dining with us and come back soon. You can try our new additions to the menu like our floor veal stock as well as our floor donuts. They're actually really good. Oh, and don't forget to call the fridge guys back. Thanks and get home safe.
Okay.
Yo, Carm, fridge guy. Yo.
I'll call him back.
My bad.